Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, sir.
So CIC is very privileged to have with us today Mr. Thiruppugazh. I will be reading out his achievements, but I would like to start by saying that he's a very good friend of CIC and a personal friend of mine, and it's a pleasure to host you today, sir, on this platform. Now, to give you a bit of his background, Dr. Thiruppugazh retired from the Indian Administrative Service with the rank of Additional Secretary to the Government of India. After joining the civil services in 1991, he served in various district roles, including Assistant Collector, District Development Officer, and District Collector, before being appointed as Joint Chief Executive Officer of the Gujarat State Disaster Management Authority. In addition to his contributions to Gujarat earthquake reconstruction and disaster management initiatives in Gujarat, he held several senior positions, including Commissioner and Secretary of Rural Development, Commissioner of Information, and Secretary to the Chief Minister in the Government of Gujarat. The Chief Minister today is the Prime Minister of the country. He also served as Senior Advisor to the Nepal Planning Commission and the Nepal National Reconstruction Authority, Government of Nepal, following the devastating earthquake of 2015. Additionally, he assisted Afghanistan in preparing its national disaster management plan. In the Government of India, he held the position of Advisor for Policy and Planning at the National Disaster Management Authority in New Delhi. He prepared India's first ever National Disaster Management Plan. He played a key role in the development of several national guidelines such as the minimum standards for relief, heat wave action plans, management of thunderstorms and lightning, guidelines for cold wave response, disability inclusive disaster management, and temporary shelters, among others. He has authored many chapters in books and journal articles related to disaster management. He earned his PhD in disaster management from the Australian National University, Canberra. He was awarded the Best District Development Officer Award in 1990 and the Best Collector Award in 2001 by the Government of Gujarat. He was also awarded the President's Silver Medal for his works as District Census Officer in 2001. He is currently the Chairman of the Advisory Committee for Flood Mitigation and Management in Chennai Metro. So we have a person who has international, national, and local experience, and I'm sure we are going to learn a lot from this event. So without further ado, I invite Dr. Thiruppugazh to take the stage. Thank you.
The topic given to me today is, are urban floods inevitable? You cannot answer some questions with yes or no. For example, have you stopped beating your wife? You cannot say yes, you cannot say no. Such questions need an answer beyond yes and no. The great thinker Edward de Bono in the late 70s coined the word po. For such questions which have no yes or no answer, he coined this word po. Po means not immediately agreeing or disagreeing, but inquiring, investigating, and thinking before giving an answer. So, for this question, are urban floods inevitable? My answer now at this point is po. We need to investigate, we need to inquire into the causes, the mitigation measures which we can take, will they be effective? If you read the literature on urban floods, the literature describes urban floods as a wicked problem. The question is it a wicked problem or is it a problem created by wicked persons? Again, this also will be answered when I finish the presentation. Urban flood is not unique to Chennai. Chennai is not the only city suffering from urban floods. I have tried to list the cities affected by floods from 2000. You can see I'm not going to read this list. See, 2000 Hyderabad, 2001 Ahmedabad. Every year, one city or the other, or more than one city, has been affected by urban floods in India. Again, in 2025, Baroda was very severely affected. Bangalore was affected. Urban flood is not unique to India. It is a global problem. I have tried to list the cities affected by floods since 2014. Again, you can see that all the major cities in the world, regardless of the fact whether the country is developed or not developed, have been affected by floods. From this photograph, can you tell me which city is it? Madras, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad? Can you name the city?
Bangalore?
Bangalore? Bangalore. But this is New York. Why I am saying is, urban floods impact the cities in the same way regardless of the cities. This is New South Wales, Australia. This is Castellon, Spain, and again Henan, China. The impact is almost similar. And the causes, the reasons, they are also almost similar. In America, they constituted an expert committee to study the problem in 4 major cities: Baltimore, Chicago, Houston, and Phoenix. I was going through this report. If you just remove this cover, framing the challenge of urban flooding in the United States, and put a cover framing the challenge of urban flooding in India, everything in this report equally applies to India also. They, in 2018, University of Maryland commissioned a study to study the urban problems. Again, the report is similar to the report which any expert for India would prepare. In the UK, when urban flooding became a very serious problem, they constituted an expert committee for bringing policy changes. Same thing. Germany, after the devastating floods, they constituted an expert committee for studying flood risk management. The causing factors are not very different. World Bank constituted an expert team to study urban floods all over the world. The study was completed. The title of the study is Rapid Urban Growth in Flood Zones. Every country has built on the flood zones. This is also the same problem. So, urban floods are a universal problem, not specific to Chennai. Before we start discussing urban problems, we should understand what a disaster really is. We have to ask 3 questions. We will ask one by one. I will ask the questions and you will give the answers. What is a disaster? This should not be a monologue. You should participate. What is a disaster?
Anything that is abnormal.
Anything that is abnormal. Then?
Things out of control.
Things out of control.
Nature's fury.
Huh?
Nature's fury.
Nature's fury. Disturbs normal life.
Anything that causes a catastrophe of a negative kind which is destructive.
Loss of life and property.
Loss of life and property. Any other answer?
You can't recover from the golden hour time, when the disaster happened.
Okay, so many different answers. I am not going to say yes or no. We will discuss it later. Again, then what is the difference between a disaster and an accident?
It happens at a high level and it's impactful and intense. Accident happens, it's big, but it's at one particular spot. It's not affecting the outer area overall. This is affecting the society and the living area of many people multifold.
Okay, an year ago I think 2 trains collided in Odisha and 200 people died.
But
It affected only the railway station nearby area.
yes, but
Is it a disaster or an accident?
it's an accident
With a disaster.
with an
Somebody
element of
is
disaster, but
responsible
no,
for
it
an
will
accident.
impact like total area, like earthquake impacts a large area and lots of people collectively are affected, more in scale than what is affected by a train accident.
Accident you can control, disaster you cannot control.
Accident is an unplanned event, whereas disaster is due to lack of vision and taking corrective action, preventive measure action.
Okay.
Disaster can be proven that is taken properly.
Accident is man-made. So we'll go to the next question. What happens is, if you start hearing a word in the television, reading the word in the newspaper, or keep talking about it, somehow we think that we know what it is. Let's see whether it is correct. The third is, what is a natural disaster and how is it different from a man-made disaster?
Natural disaster like earthquake.
Then, what is a natural disaster?
Storm, earthquake, storms,
They are natural disasters.
Yes. Tsunamis.
Nature's fury.
Nature's fury.
Man-made is working against the environment.
Natural disaster.
Okay. So I say we have this myth of natural disasters. Do you agree? I will come to that. Whether you agree or not, that's the question now. I will answer all this later. Yes. So why do you say it is a myth? Now only somebody said nature's fury. Cyclone, storm, and they are all natural disasters. Okay. Now,
They have built the houses.
see, one definition I will give which will answer more or less all your questions. Let's look at the definition given by UNDRR, United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. It's a universally accepted definition. It says for an event to become a disaster, 3 conditions should be fulfilled. Wind blowing at the speed of 150 or 200 kilometers is not a disaster. It is a hazard. How that hazard becomes a disaster? First 3 conditions. One is a serious disruption of the functioning of a community or a society at any scale. So it should be a serious disruption, not a small scale one, a serious disruption. That is the first condition. But that condition alone will not suffice, because even an actor goes to a place, you have this disturbance. So you can't. Let me go to the next point. Due to hazardous events interacting with conditions of exposure, vulnerability, and capacity. If we can understand these 3 words, we would have understood what disaster management is, what a disaster is. Due to hazardous events, shaking of the ground, that is just a hazardous event. It doesn't become a disaster in itself. So, cyclone, wind blowing at the speed of 150 200 kilometers is just an event, hazardous event. This hazardous event is turned into a disaster based on 3 conditions: exposure, vulnerability, and capacity. Exposure, population and assets exposed to that hazard. I'll give you a simple example. On the coast, if there are 2 villages, one village has 50 huts, the other village has 1,000 huts. Which do you think will be more affected? 50 or 1,000? 1,000, isn't it? Because more assets and people are exposed. Then next is vulnerability. Let us take the same 2 villages. Let's assume that in both villages there are 1,000 houses, but in the first village all the houses are huts, and in the second village all the houses are RCC, cement concrete houses. Which will be more affected? Huts, because they are more vulnerable. Valimai inmai, weakness. The third is capacity. I will give another example. If there are 2 buildings adjacent to each other, one is a building, a multi-story building constructed at the cost of 150 crores by a rich man for his use, and the other is a small hut adjacent to that built by a poor man. If there is an earthquake, if both the buildings collapse, who will suffer more economic loss? Rich man.
No,
Who will be affected more?
more to go.
Why?
Because all he has is only that.
That reduces to the simple fact that the poor man does not have the coping capacity, the capacity to bounce back. So a hazard is turned into a disaster if you don't have the capacity to resist it or to bounce back. So these 3 are very, very important: exposure, vulnerability, and capacity. And then the third condition is it should lead to loss of human lives, material loss, economic loss, or environmental loss. So if these 3 conditions are fulfilled, then only you can call it as a disaster. We look at the National Disaster Management Act of India, Disaster Management Act 2005. Recently it was amended in 2024. It says that a catastrophe, mishap, calamity, or a grave occurrence in any area. This is simply a hazardous event. This is a legal language. Arising from natural or man-made causes. The cause may be natural one, man-made one, by accident, or negligence. We don't differentiate between an accident and negligence. When it results in substantial loss of life or human suffering, or damage to and destruction of property, or damage to or degradation of environment. So substantial loss of life. If two trains collide and if two people die, it is not a disaster. If two trains collide, if 200 people die, it is a disaster. That is the difference. Very wisely, Government of India has not put any number. If 50 people die, then it is a disaster. Many countries have defined it. An international database, emergency management database, defines, which is a very widely used database, defines a disaster if 10 people are killed, if 100 people are affected, if the economic losses run into some millions. But we have not defined it that way. I'll tell you one of my personal experience. After Latur earthquake, I was there. In Latur earthquake, Government of Maharashtra said that every village wanted to relocate. 27 villages in Latur district was totally affected. They wanted to relocate. The government came out with a criteria for relocation. If 70% of the buildings were damaged, and they had put a number, some 20 or 15, I've forgotten now, 15 or 20 people are dead, that village is eligible for relocation. You will be surprised. People started dragging dead bodies from other villages to this village and started claiming that we have crossed that number, so we want to relocate. So very wisely, the drafters of this act, they have not put any number. And fourth condition is very, very important, that event should be of such a nature or magnitude as to be beyond the coping capacity of the community of the affected area. This coping capacity is very, very important. So if you reduce this into a simple equation, disaster risk is hazard into vulnerability into exposure by capacity. Hazard, if it is natural hazard, we can't do anything about it. You can't reduce it. But you can certainly reduce vulnerability and exposure and increase the capacity. If it is a man-made hazard, there are different hazards, natural hazard and man-made hazard. If you want to put an atomic power plant, putting it in an area which is less crowded means you are reducing the hazard. You can certainly reduce vulnerability, exposure and increase capacity. With this background understanding, now we can discuss about urban floods. Urban flood is a complex problem. There are many causes. You can't reduce it to one or two causes. I participated in a debate organized by one news magazine. There were 4 other panelists. One panelist was telling that urban flood happens only because of corruption, due to corruption only. That is the only reason. If you eliminate corruption, there will not be any urban flood. So I asked him, do you think corruption is the same reason why it is happening in UK? It is happening in USA? It is happening in Germany? Is it the only reason? So this reductionistic approach of picking up 1 or 2 causes and trying to address it will not help us. It's a complex problem. There are no simple solutions. And again, urban flood is different from other disasters. There is no spot-specific solution for urban floods. For earthquakes or cyclones or landslides, you can have spot-specific solutions. You can make a settlement earthquake resilient. Even one single building can be made earthquake resilient. Similarly, one settlement can be made landslide resilient, and one settlement can be made resilient to cyclones, but it is not possible in the case of urban floods. If you want to make one ward safe against urban floods, you will be only shifting the problem from this ward to another ward. Either you have a holistic problem or you don't, holistic solution, or you don't have a solution. The other reason is our cities developed before we understood hazards and risks. Many of our cities are 100 years old, 200 years. Some of the European cities are 700 years, 800 years old. Still, we have not understood hazards properly. The science of hazards is now only understood. That's also partially. Our computer models are able to tell us more and more now. This was not the case before 50 years. Certainly, it was not the case before 100 or 200 years. We developed our cities before we understood the hazards and risks. Any city has grown big over a period of 100 years, suffers from urban floods. You cannot solve this problem in short term. There are no quick fix solutions for urban flood. Urban flood is no longer a black swan event. It's a regular feature now. It is the new normal. We have to accept it. I'm not talking about Chennai. I am talking about all the cities in India and almost all the cities in the world. First, we spoke about flood control, controlling flood through structural measures. You build dams, dikes, flood protection walls, drainage systems, controlling flood. That failed. The second thing is we started talking about flood management. We will be able to manage floods once it occurs. Then we started talking about making way for water. You can't manage floods, give way for water, it will not disturb us. Now, experts are talking about living with floods. What I say should not be misunderstood. Because in one television channel in an interview, I told that வெள்ளத்தோடு வாழ பழகி கொள்ள வேண்டும் அப்படின்னு நான் சொன்னேன். இது நிறைய கமெண்ட்ஸ் இருந்தது. இவருக்கு அறிவே கிடையாது, பேரிடர் மேலாண்மையே தெரியாது, வெள்ளத்தை கட்டுப்படுத்துவதற்கு 100 வழிகள் இருக்கின்றன. அப்படி சொன்னவர் ஒரு 10 வழியாவது எழுதி கீழே போட்டிருந்தாருன்னா எல்லாருக்கும் உபயோகமாக இருந்திருக்கும். ஸோ வாட் டு ஐ மீன் வென் ஐ சே லிவிங் வித் ஃப்ளட்ஸ்? If you read the literature on urban floods, great scholars, experts, disaster management experts are telling that we have to live with urban floods. See, I have shown some journal articles here. All these experts are saying we have to live with urban floods. What do they mean by saying we have to live with urban floods? Earlier we thought we were talking about a 100-year flood event, written period of 100 years. This sort of flood will occur once in 100 years, so we can relax. For 100 years, there is no problem. First of all, a 100-year flood does not mean that it will occur once in 100 years. It only means that the probability of that event occurring is 1%. That's all. It may occur this year, it may occur next year also again. And the second is, due to changing climate, urban floods has become a regular feature. Now, we have to take adaptive measures, mitigation measures, keeping this fact in mind that floods will happen. Living with floods does not mean that we should all allow ourselves to be affected by floods. It does not mean that. It simply means that we have to take adequate measures. We cannot be complacent. What is urban flood? To put it simply, it is overwhelming of a city's drainage capacity. That's all, as simple as that. Then we have to understand what is the criteria we use for designing drainages in the urban areas. There is something called the IDF curve, intensity, duration and frequency curve. Intensity means inches of rainfall in an hour. Duration means how long it will rain. Third is frequency, how often it will rain. This whole thing has gone for a toss now due to changing climate. CPHO, Central Public Health and Environmental Engineering Department, Organization of Government of India, comes out with a manual. Many years back, the manual recommended, based on the rainfall which was occurring in those days, we have to design our drainages for 20 millimeters of rainfall per hour. Then they have revised it recently. They are saying that this is a recent revised manual. We have to design it for 50 millimeters per rainfall. But rainfall per hour now in certain places due to cloudburst and all is exceeding even 80 millimeters. One example I have given on 1st June 2025 in Silcharasa, it rained 80 millimeters per hour. So what will you do if it rains like that? Other causes, a city like Chennai or Bombay suffers from multiple causes. One is fluvial flood, rain falling within the city. Second is fluvial flood, river water coming from the upstream. Third is coastal flood, tsunami and sea level rise. Sea level rise is due to global warming. Urban flood is anthropogenic. I belong to a school of thought. In disaster management, there are two schools of thought. One says that there are natural disasters and man-made disasters. And the other says there is only man-made disaster. All disasters are man-made. Our commissions and omissions create this problem. converts a natural event, natural hazard into a disaster. So urban flood is certainly anthropogenic. Even if you say it is due to climate change is due to anthropogenic causes. But at the same time, we cannot attribute all urban flood to changing climate. If there is urban flood, we cannot escape saying that it is due to climate change. The other reason is rapid urbanization. Our cities are growing fast. As the city grows fast, as the urban area expands, the peripheral small municipal corporations and villages are brought into the urban area. Those small villages and municipalities will not have proper infrastructure facilities. So if I include 10 villages and 20 municipalities in my city limit tomorrow, if that area is flooded, then it will be attributed to entire Chennai getting flooded. So this is one factor. And then higher rainfall in short duration of time, we have seen that. And there is something called urban heat island effect. Urban areas are 3 to 4 degrees higher in temperature when compared with the rural areas because of the cement concrete jungle we have created. We have cut down the trees, finished off our water bodies. We have created tall buildings, dense buildings, which creates an urban canyon effect and air cannot pass through. We have paved all our surfaces, as a result of which urban areas are 3 to 4 degrees higher than the neighboring rural areas. If a rain-bearing cloud crosses the urban area, due to this excess heat, all the rain will fall on that particular urban area, creating a cloudburst sort of situation. Then poor urban and land use planning. Again, this applies to all the cities in the world. Poor urban and land use planning, much more maybe in the Indian context, poor urban and land use planning. We have not done risk-informed planning. Partly it may be willful, partly because we have not understood the hazards. And construction and encroachment in the waterway of rivers, canals and drainage channels. In many places we see government construction. In many places people have encroached. And we see construction on the water bodies and wetlands. We should understand why encroachments on canals, rivers and water bodies are taking place. One is demand for housing for the poor. See, when we design urban areas, when you make land use planning, we never consider the need of housing for poor people. But all the people who can afford, all the rich people and upper middle class people, we want a servant in the house, we want a driver for us, but we want them to live next to our house so that they can come. Whenever we call, they should be able to come. But there is no provision for their housing. So they have to encroach these lands. Demand for land for housing and economic value of the land, a nexus between politicians, bureaucrats and encroachers, poor implementation of our regulations, lack of understanding of the critical role these water bodies play. These are some of the reasons. Poor drainage management, inadequacy of both natural and constructed drains. These photographs speak for themselves. I don't need to even explain. You see choking of our stormwater drains, culverts and other outlets by solid waste, debris, plastics, garbage, construction waste, construction debris, all this block our drainages. Poor reservoir management. This is something which we have to understand. Sudden release of water from dams located upstream of cities and towns. If there is a dam located in the upstream of a city, if that dam is providing drinking water to the city, the reservoir managers are always in a dilemma whether to release water or not. If I prematurely release water, then there will be a drinking water shortage problem. If I don't release, there will be flood situation. I was a witness to one such event. In the control room, all the important people were worried whether they should release water or not release water. Of course, not Chennai control room. I have no role in Chennai control room. So, increase in runoff due to non-permeable pavements and surfaces. Runoff has increased. I will show you in the subsequent slides. Increased tremendously. All of us want paving paradises. We want everything to be paved. 75% of public spaces, parks, walkways, office premises are paved nowadays. In many cities, smart city program has been simply misunderstood as a paving program, paving the surfaces program. In many cities, the runoff is nearly 95%. Again, raising of the road levels without milling and pitching. So the road level today in many places, in many of the Indian cities, is higher than the level in the neighboring areas, which results in flooding. Lack of planned permanent pumping facilities in some of the low-lying areas. In some places, there is no other option than pumping the flood waters and putting them in the nearby drain. So you should have permanent pumping facilities there, which is not available. Again, mixing of sewage and storm water in majority of sewer and drain networks, this happens. Closed drains. Nowadays, we call it cut and cover. If you want to increase the size of the drainage, capacity of the drainage in the core city, you will not have much space to do that. The only option is to go for cut and cover type of drains. But if you go for cut and cover type of drains, once you close it and the traffic starts moving, then you will never have a chance to open it and clean it. For 20 years, 15 years, it is never opened. You don't know what is inside. Debris, solid waste blocking the flow of water. And also another technical thing is the distance between the manholes. In earlier days, I've seen in places where the distance between two manholes is 20 meters. In some places, it is even 30 meters. It was okay in those days when manual cleaning was done. Today, you can't do that. You have to depend on equipments. So if it is more than 5 meters or 10 meters, you can't send your equipments inside and clean the drains. It poses a lot of difficulty. Then fractured construction of drains and inadequate disposal points. Many of the flood infrastructure are old and dilapidated in many of the cities, and this aging infrastructure is again a universal problem. If I name the country which is more worried in this, that is USA. Well, they're all very, very old infrastructure. Then rainwater harvesting facilities are very limited where it exists. It is poorly maintained. Indiscriminate construction of ramps of different sizes and shapes by residences by obstructing stormwater drains. You can see this photograph. The water cannot flow into the drain from the road. I visited some of the areas. The people there were well-to-do people. All of them were complaining that, their drains are choked and this and that. And they were pointing out to some poor people who have encroached the nearby place. But if you look very carefully, who is contributing to more runoff? Is it the poor man or the rich man? Rich people are contributing to more runoff because they have more paved surfaces, big houses, huge terraces, their gardens are paved, driveway is paved. They are contributing more. Not only the poor people, we should understand that. Then the specification and standards of the inlets and outlets are not followed. It varies. That's why I said in the nearby municipalities and small towns, the standards may be different. And when it is integrated with the city, there is a mismatch. Several technical inadequacies in terms of maintaining slope, angle, and placement of inlets and road constructions. For example, in olden days, the inlet will be placed perpendicular to the drain. So if the water flows like this, water will not flow into the drain. It should be kept like this depending on the flow of water. Then not using the catchment as the unit of planning. Again, you find it in almost all the cities. For our administrative convenience, we keep the ward or the zone as the basic unit of planning. But water doesn't have such units. For planning for urban flood mitigation, you should take the entire catchment area as the unit. The catchment should be the unit for planning. Catchment or river basin should be the unit. Weak enforcement of regulations. Again, we have medians in the roads. These medians don't have facility for cross drainage. So that's why often you see one side of the road, this side of the median is flooded, the other side the traffic will be moving on. Again, destruction of green environment and trees resulting in loose soil and faster flows. This also is one of the reasons. Poor solid waste management almost in all cities. And then lack of coordination among different agencies. In every city in this country, you find many agencies. Highways department will be there, municipal corporation, urban development authority, Water Resources Department, area development authorities, metro rail in some cities, railways, all these agencies are working in silos. So one department may not even know what the other department is doing. So we have understood the causes to some extent. We can talk about mitigation measures. Sendai framework. I don't think I have time to talk about Sendai framework. So gives 4 important priorities for disaster risk mitigation. First is we have to understand the risk. Unless you understand the risk, you cannot plan for mitigation. The second is improving risk governance. We're not talking about improving the performance of the government. It is improving risk governance, which includes all the stakeholders. Third is investing in resilience. It's again a beautiful phrase. It doesn't say spend money on creating resilience. It says invest in resilience. If you invest $1 today in risk mitigation, you can save $6 to $7 or $8 in the form of relief and reconstruction. And for tackling any residual risk, you need to improve early warning, preparedness, response, and building back better. The right way to reduce risk is first stop accumulating new risks. You should stop accumulating new risks and then reduce existing risk. If you have special programs and aim at only reducing risk, and if you don't mainstream disaster risk reduction, on the one hand we will be accumulating risk, on the other hand we will be trying to reduce risk. First of all, for any city, what we need for flood risk mitigation is a comprehensive, long-term technical blueprint called a master drainage plan. Based on that master drainage plan, only city expansion should take place. This is what I feel. 3 basic principles for flood mitigation. One is reduce runoff. All the water that drains should not flow into the drains. Reduce runoff. Second is stagger release. If it has to flow through the drains, let it not flow at the same time. Stagger it. Third is increase the flow. Whatever water falls into the drains should run fast from micro canal to macro canal, from macro canal to the river, and then from river to the sea. We have to talk about integrated drainage system. Combine natural and man-made systems. You cannot have only grey solutions. And we should also think about the concept of one water. We talk about one health. We should talk about one water. Now we talk about 3 waters: drinking water, wastewater, and storm water. We all think that storm water is wastewater. No, it can be used, it should be used. Storm water is not wastewater. Wastewater can be recycled. Drinking water can be conserved. And design based on the catchment area, not administrative boundaries. Simple, remove obstructions and encroachments, regular cleaning of drains, not just before the monsoon season, because now due to changing climate, it can drain at any time. So, increase the adequacy of inlet to the drains, bioswales. Don't go for grey infrastructure, just drains. Create bioswales so that the plants inside the drains can help groundwater recharge and they can filter the storm water, and pure water can flow into the river, and from there it can flow into the sea. Install automatic pumping facilities with generators in the low-lying areas so that beyond a certain threshold of rain, automatically pumping will start. Stop discharge of sewage water. Remove debris, solid waste from drains, wastewater bodies, canals and rivers. And again, create bigger size culverts. In ancient time, we created a culvert of a particular size because only storm water was flowing through that culvert. Today, our utility lines pass through these culverts, and 30% of the space is occupied by the utility lines. So either we have a separate utility line, or we have to increase the size of the culverts at least 30% in future. Maintain the existing level of roads when they are relaid. Provide cross drainage facilities, circular or rectangular openings. That's a photograph from Japan. You can see that how they have created cross drainage facilities. You can see holes there in that median. Go for blue-green infrastructure and nature-based solutions. If you go for nature-based solutions, in addition to flood mitigations, you can have a lot of co-benefits. It can take care of carbon sequestration, carbon absorption. They can work as carbon sinks, they can provide livelihood, they can reduce pollution. So go for a nature-based solution in combination with grey infrastructure, promote rainwater harvesting, promote groundwater recharge, create retention ponds, both temporary and permanent retention ponds. Then only you will be able to stagger the release of water into the stormwater drains. Avoid payments. We say that we are all sons of the soil. You go to any big city in the country, you see only paved surfaces. There are only sons, no soil. So avoid payments to the extent possible. If the road has to be, if the surface has to be paved, go for permeable payments. Create rain gardens. In cities, there will not be enough space for creating temporary holding ponds. We can use our playgrounds, low-lying areas, parks, schools as temporary holding ponds. This is a photograph taken from Japan, actually, in Japan. See, they have converted their playgrounds into temporary holding ponds. But contrary, I saw in some of the cities in India, the schools and colleges are pumping the water in their ground and they're pumping it into the road. That floods the neighboring areas. This can be used. Our tennis courts can be used as temporary holding ponds, this again in Japan, and create underground holding ponds. Tokyo has created a huge underground holding pond. And we have to create sponge cities. We have a lot to learn from the example of China, which is creating sponge cities. And increase the water flow through dredging facilities. As far as the runoff is concerned, National Disaster Management Authority guidelines on urban flood says the runoff should be 0.95, which means 95% of the rainwater in the cities have become runoff. So they have recommended to have a runoff coefficient of 0.95. The coefficient can be 0 or 1. They have recommended 0.95, which is near 100%. Automatic pumping stations, I have spoken about this. Remove the bottlenecks and encroachments. Go for buyout programs. If we have constructed legally on the floodplains also, in some places we have to go for buyout programs and we have to buy that property and convert it into a park or open space, and we should give adequate money to those people to relocate elsewhere. Scientific solid waste management practices should be adhered. And we have improved models for early warning today. We need to install automatic weather stations. NDMA recommends installation of one weather station per 4 square kilometers so that real-time monitoring of the rainfall can take place. We have good flood warning systems in Mumbai, Guwahati and Thane. We can study that. And we need to go for more Doppler weather radars, that is X-band in urban areas. There are 3 types of radars: C-band, S-band and X-band. S-band means it will cover 400 kilometers of area, the resolution will not be very good. Then C-band around 200 to 250, the resolution will be medium. The short band, X-band, will cover only 100 kilometers, but the resolution will be high. And urban flooding is a local problem. So you need to have high resolution, short range radars. Then we have to improve our techno-legal regime, compliance with building codes, building to be built on silt and flood prone areas, and tsunami resistant design should be promoted in the coastal areas. Better reservoir management. Manage inflow and outflow in the dams, balance it. Surat was affected by a devastating flood in the year 2006. Then they went for a system. They created a lot of scenarios based on different rainfall predictions. They studied the catchment. They could calculate the inflow based on IMD's rainfall forecast. And then based on that calculation, they started releasing water in advance so that last minute rushed up release of water can be avoided. Experts recommend empty the reservoir at least 1 meter before rainfall based on IMD's forecast. Not that you release on your own, based on IMD's forecast, based on computer models and already developed scenarios you can release. Community preparedness is very, very important, particularly RWAs in the urban areas have to play a very important role. We need trained volunteers for early warning, search and rescue, and evacuation. Lot of spontaneous voluntarism is seen in our country, but that creates sometimes more problems than providing us a solution. So we need trained, certified, and equipped volunteers for mitigating urban flood. First of all, we need a comprehensive flood risk atlas. Flood risk vulnerability atlas is necessary. That is the very basic for any hazard intervention. Then only you can get a holistic idea of hazards, vulnerabilities, and risks and prioritize our interventions. So, hazard assessment should be done first, and second, we should go for vulnerability assessment, then go for risk assessment. So, comprehensive flood hazard vulnerability and risk atlas is required, and then we should map the vulnerable people and vulnerable places. Which area will be affected? In that area also, who will be affected more? Based on HRVA, prioritize the interventions. You cannot do everything at the same time. See, in many places, I find this all or none approach. Either you want to do everything or you don't want to do anything. In disaster management, it is not possible. I still feel that Pareto's principle of 80-20 is valid for disaster management also. 80% of the risk is concentrated in 20% of the places. If you can prioritize your interventions based on the risk profile of that place and select this 20%, you can reduce 80% of the risk. And then again, this is a very big problem at the international level also, designing the return period. Whether you should design for a 100-year return period or 200-year return period. You will all be shocked if I say that Netherlands is now planning for a return period of 100,000 years. Earlier they were planning for a return period of 10,000 year flood. Now they are planning for a return period of 100,000 years. Of course, a country like India, because it costs so much of money. Netherlands case is very different. But still, this is a debate going on whether you should plan for 100 years return period or 200 years return period. I have no answers. Catchment should be the basis. I have told this many, many times. And we should go for risk transfer and insurance. Government and people, they cannot absorb the loss and risk by themselves. We need to insure against disaster risk, and then you should promote not only insurance, reinsurance also, so that the risk is globally distributed. Buyouts, I've spoken about this. And again, a very simple thing, marking high flood level to warn people. Just simply mark high HFL everywhere. In government buildings, if you have electric poles, it will do wonders in my opinion. It will completely shake up the real estate market. And disaster risk in housing development projects. See, when you go and buy a house, you really don't know the risk profile of the place. There is a lot of asymmetry of knowledge between the developers and the buyers. So risk profile should be part of the housing brochures. Land pooling for construction of drains. See, if you want to construct a drain in an area, if you take only one person's land, 100 meters of land, then he will be at total loss. He will not be willing to forcibly acquire the land. He will go to the court and all this litigation process will start. If you can pool the land, if 50 people are going to be benefited out of the drain, and if each one has to give only 5 meters and then realign their land, that's called land pooling. That can be attempted. Chennai suffers from flood. Chennai also suffers from drought. Same is the case in many other cities. The solution is the same. One solution for both drought and floods: increase the storage capacity, create underground holding ponds, create rainwater harvesting structures, go for groundwater recharge. Then our airports. Airports are critical infrastructure. So far, I have been using the word flood resistant, flood resilient. Now, for airports, I will say they should be flood proof. There should be zero risk, because if the airport is not functional, you will not be able to get even rescue teams. Rescue teams in 2015 had to land in Arakonam. They couldn't even land in Arakonam. There is no landing facility. Madras, they could not land. They landed in Bangalore and came all the way by road. NDRF came from Bangalore. So it's critical for rushing emergency supplies and rescue teams, and it should be flood proof. How will you do it? By providing efficient drainage facility and creating more holding ponds nearby. Other mitigation measures: restore water bodies wherever it is possible. There are many places without stormwater drains, provide drains, regular desilting. Identify land parcels for safe disposal of debris, particularly construction debris. We need to go for risk informed planning. That's why I said we should have a hazard risk vulnerability atlas based on which we should plan our urban expansion. Create additional storage in the upper catchment areas. Undertake massive plantation of trees. I will rush a bit because I think it's 7 o'clock now. No construction in floodplains, period. That's all. No conditional approvals, nothing of the sort, no construction in floodplains. Enforce rainwater harvesting structures. In some of the cities it was done, but most of them are dysfunctional now. Why? Why it's happening? Why we have not been successful in this country in rainwater harvesting? One is lack of awareness and knowledge. The other is lack of post-construction services and periodic audit. One time people constructed, that's all. Lack of technical support agencies, annual rate contract of maintenance. These facilities should be provided if rainwater harvesting facility has to be successful. Monitoring has to be there. Then, review building bylaws to make sure buildings are built with stills if necessary in flood prone areas. And there is one catch here, that area should not be a high seismic zone. You can't do that in zone 4 and zone 5. Create a body to coordinate with various agencies concerned with urban flood under the Chief Secretary or any other senior officer. Preparation of the comprehensive disaster management plan. If there is no plan, if there is a plan already, like Thane, you revise the plan, go for information, education and awareness campaigns, sensitize people, create a pool of trained volunteers. METAR data is available. In the airport, the data, the forecast is available once in 30 minutes. The city area is almost the same. So that data can be disseminated. Financing, how would you finance? Then go for development loans if it is necessary. Tax, stormwater utility fees. I think there should be a political will in any government, in any state for doing this. Properties pay based on the impervious surface they own. If I am responsible for this much runoff, I should pay this much money, connected with the paved surface they have. Green bonds and resilient bonds can be thought about. What is the way forward for the government? No quick fix solutions. Implement first short-term measures like drainage and then go for long-term measures. All cannot be winners and losers. There will be losers and there will be winners. If you go for risk reduction, some people will lose, some people will gain. All that we have to see is people who have been creating the problems become losers and people who are suffering should become winners. That should be the criteria. Enforce regulations to prevent the creation of new risks. Create a mechanism for coordination. I've spoken about this. Then acceptable risk. We should understand this. We cannot live in a situation where there is zero risk. We should define what is our acceptable risk. If half a feet of water in the streets, is it acceptable or not acceptable? 1 feet, is it acceptable or not acceptable? I'll give you an example from earthquake. When you are designing structures according to the seismic codes, it does not mean the house will not be damaged at all. It may suffer cracks. The criteria is that it should not collapse and kill people. If you are designing a hospital, it will be designed for higher standards. If you are designing an atomic power plant, then there should not be even a slight crack. It should be of very high standard. So what is the acceptable risk for us? We have to define what is our acceptable risk. If you define your acceptable risk like Netherlands, then you have to also think about the cost implications. And again, living with floods, don't misunderstand me. Living with floods does not mean that we should get affected by floods. It simply means that we should take precautions. Review our existing legal framework, policy, rules and regulations if necessary. Go for community-based disaster management. Focus on training and capacity building needs. Communities have to be trained. If you don't train them, they will not be able to play the role. They have to be trained. look at our institutional arrangements to improve our risk governance, study international best practices, and contextualize them according to the need of Chennai or any other city. Do we have any role, citizens? What is our role? We are playing a big role in creating the problem. We are also part of the problem. We are part of the problem, which means we must also be part of the solution. So, how can we do it? We are creating the problem by increasing the vulnerability, blocking natural drainage channels with waste and debris, by creating increased exposure, building homes in flood-prone areas, low-lying areas, often without understanding the risk. We reduce cities' capacity by paving our gardens, driveways, community spaces, turning our neighborhoods into non-absorbent plastic sheets, and ignoring the rules, illegal constructions and encroachments. So we should know what we should do before the flood, during the flood, and after the flood. Before flood, we should do mitigation and preparedness measures. When buying or renting, consult city flood maps, ask local residents about waterlogging history, avoid low-lying areas. Make your home at least a sponge. Opt for permeable materials, driveways, maintain a garden, install water harvesting system in your house. Be prepared. As I said earlier, we can't live in a situation with zero risk. There will also always be a residual risk. Create a family emergency kit. Have a family communication plan. Know where to meet if separated. Keep drains around your house clean. Store enough water. Buy milk and vegetables. Store grains. This is a problem due to our modern development. If markets close for 2 days, we don't have anything to eat. I was collector in a tribal district in Gujarat, a complete tribal district bordering Rajasthan. There was a problem there, a communal situation, so I had to impose curfew. Imposed a curfew for more than 2 weeks. But nobody suffered with this problem of food shortage because these tribals buy their grains once in a year, buy their oil once in a year, buy their dal once in a year, and vegetables there is a weekly market. They go and buy for once in basically aloo and pyaj and things like that, onion and potatoes they buy. And milk will be a problem. Most of the tribals don't use milk much. So they had no problem. As a collector, I was really worried. What will they eat? Then the people from the tribal leaders advised, sir, don't worry, sir. Once in a year we buy. In that season, we buy and stock. But we don't do that. I was studying the disaster management problem in Germany with my counterpart over there. He told me that if there is no electricity for 2 days in Germany, all the supermarkets will come to a standstill because they don't have a system of physically stock taking and ordering. See, this reader reads and immediately the stock is reduced, automatically order is placed. So you will not be able to even place orders for getting things. That is the situation. So we have to, at least in rainy season, store adequate grains. During flood, move to higher ground, turn off electricity and gas. Don't walk over or drive over flood waters. Just 6 inches of moving water can knock you down. Stay informed, listen to official alerts and instructions. After flood, again this is very important, watch out for snakes, electrocution, downed wires and contaminated water, clean and disinfect. Help your neighbors, check on the elderly, children and those with special needs. Partner with others. You should learn how to work with others. A lot of NGOs come to try help us. Government is trying to help us. Municipal corporation may help us. Volunteers may help us. So it is not us versus them. It is us together. That should be the mentality during crisis time. We have to be the eyes and ears to inform things what is happening on the ground. Crowdsourcing of information is a very good way of knowing the ground realities, getting real-time information. We have to attend public hearings and ward meetings, if at all they are conducted, give constructive feedback on city development plans. Follow the rules, paying our taxes, volunteering. So we will come back to our question, are urban floods inevitable? Floods may become inevitable in future, but getting affected by floods is not inevitable. It is our choice. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for a wonderful sharing of knowledge. Two or three things that I would like to ask. You mentioned about cross drainage in highways and roads. This is something which is basic common sense, but which is not being implemented. Is there any time map by when this should be completed or done? Is there any central or state rule about this?
There is no center or state rule about this.
Uh,
Time limit should be in
no,
the
when
plan.
you, sorry, go ahead.
See, we have to prepare a disaster management plan. In that plan, we should identify activities, classify them as short-term measures, medium-term measures, long-term measures, and a time frame should be fixed in our plan.
But this will continue then for another 10, 15 years.
If you don't do anything, everything will continue.
The second point, you mentioned Holland. I've studied in Holland. The Dutch airport is called Schiphol. It used to be a harbor earlier, and it was a place where sinking ships, the rotten ships, used to go there, and they were allowed to sink. Schiphol is a name in Dutch. It is ship's dive. It's 4 feet below sea level,
Yes.
and they've been functioning beautifully around the year. It's a great idea to have airports that are, totally disaster proof. The last thing, I would like to make a suggestion. I told the president of the IIT Madras Alumni Association many years ago to set up a think tank. I think you can both be the seed of, a think tank of retired IAS officers. You have a wealth of knowledge. And today 60 is not a retirement age. They say 100 is the new 60. So I do believe that this is a crying need. And if people like you give recommendations to state and central governments, I don't see anybody, refusing to follow these advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Praneshwan, retired Deputy Chief Engineer from Tamil Nadu Water Supply and Drainage Board. I have been working almost 44 years in the environment. Now I retired completely. I just want to point out 5 points. Number one, our streets are narrow. So we cannot design more than 2-year flood intensity of flood, because you need space for other infrastructure like water supply line, sewerage line, stormwater line, that is telecommunication, like that. So many infrastructure. So you are it cannot adequately take all the flood water. Should be limited design. For example, railway structure you can design for 100 years, but you cannot do like that because the space is very limited. Your FSI rates are time and again you are increasing floor space index. So a lot of multi-stories buildings are coming, and more inflow of sewage and water supply and stormwater. So next one I want to tell about combined sewer. See, most of the European cities are having combined sewer. That means that sewerage and also stormwater together flow in one pipe. So when in lean period, only sewage will flow. When there is storm there, stormwater also will join together and flow together. So that, as Dr. Thiruppugazh pointed out, we have not thought of future. We should have done long back this combined sewer, which would have mitigated the flood situation. Next one is finance. We have more water supply programs, but sewerage system is almost 3 to 4 times costlier. We don't have funds. So many towns in Tamil Nadu or anywhere in India, we don't have a sewer system for all the things. During 1 minute, 1 minute. One was during Tamil Nadu has done this Tamil Nadu water supply and sanitation project long back. which covered Coimbatore, Madurai, and Salem. So in that, World Bank gave 1 crore free fund for programming is sector planning. Sector planning means water sector, what will be for next year, what is going to happen for next 30 years, design period. For that you see the fund and etc. How to plan resource fund and etc. Same way, sector plan for sewerage, sector plan for irrigation, sector plan for stormwater, we have to do. We have prepared and
Sir, please.
but not implemented.
So please ask questions, sir.
Okay,
You have a question or?
that's all.
See, I would like to respond to your suggestions. First is, I know very well in the old city, you cannot increase the size of the drain. I said that. That's why I said no single solution is going to work. I gave a range of solutions. I never said in the narrow city areas you expand your drains. I didn't say that. I know it is not possible. The second thing is, I didn't also talk about merging stormwater drains and sewerage drains. I didn't say. Because that much quality of treated sewerage water we will not be able to put into our drains. What I said was, have a separate sewer, but what is increase the size of the stormwater drains because utility lines are going through it. Third is the sector plan. We should come out of this sector-wise planning and we should look at an integrated planning. Can you have a complete flood risk management plan? Not look at it, water sector and this sector and that sector, silos kill. That is my opinion. Next question.
Is there any relation between migration and then cities, food and the drought actually? Is there any migration to the cities for the job? And then my second question is,
okay.
Last month, Chetan Bhagat wrote an article in Times of India. India had to create, 50 cities or 40 cities actually. Hardly India had 6 cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, and then Chennai, and then Gurgaon, Kolkata. People are full, so that we have to create more cities actually. Is there any possible? What is your opinion on that?
So I don't know about the second thing. I have not read that article. I will not be able to comment upon it. The first thing is, naturally, if there is perennial drought in an area, people will out migrate. That's why Tamil Panjam Padaikka Vandaral, Panjam Padaikka Vandonu or phrase here. Yeah. Next.
Good evening, sir. Suresh Malya, my name, and thanks for a wonderful presentation. Just an analogy before my question is, today's problems are because of yesterday's short-sightedness. So tomorrow's problem should not be because of today's short-sightedness. And connecting analogy is, the skyscrapers today in the garb of community living, it's got about 1,000 flats, multiple into 4 humans living 4,000. But CMDA, MMDA gives 40 years as a lifespan for that, which means 2.5% diminishing value per year. So 40 years down the line, where do you relocate the human beings there and do a redevelopment? Because today, the capacity utilization of FSI is explored to the optimum level. How the disaster management can put a alarming situation to this, to curtail this, to give a space for the future redevelopment within the community living. Thank you.
See, given the population we have, if you want to look at this problem from the point of view of climate change, if you want to mitigate climate change, we should go for vertical development, compact cities, dense development. This is the reality today. You can't go on spreading your city limits, increase the road size, traveling time, emit more greenhouse gases. It is not possible. All that you should have is transit-oriented development, compact city, vertical growth. This is very important. That is where perhaps Gautam must have said that you should create satellite towns. The idea is that you don't have a central business district where everybody has to come to the same place. So create separate. See, now we are talking about walkable cities. Nobody should walk for more than 15 minutes to go to the school, to go to their workplaces, to go to their hospital, go to their parks, entertainment centers, only 15. So we are talking about walkable cities. I think the whole concept of urban planning will change in future. Whole settlement planning is going to be changed totally in future. And everybody is thinking, experts are talking about this, thinking about this. Some of the European cities like Copenhagen, they've done it already. People are aware of this problem.
B. Ramarao, Federation of Animal Welfare Association. Sir, under Thiruppugazh Committee's recommendation, the stormwater drains are being built in Chennai city, in which the storm rainwater collecting pit is only a small gap, say about 1 feet. It is being built, and it is connected to the stormwater drain. So normally it should be at least 10 feet. There should be a separate pipe so that the water percolates down the earth, and the retention of water will be increased. But it is not so being built with 10 feet or 15 feet, whatever the experts can say. But merely they are just make a one small outlet just to enter. But it will be the same level when the heavy water flows, say 10 centimeter and all that, and water flow will be there, and there will not be much, it will not be go through the ground. So why, what can you explain that? Because we want that water should percolate down, but it is not designed like that. Please explain. Thank you.
See, there are technical, first of all, I've really forgotten what I recommended in my committee's report. I wrote it 4 years back, I've totally forgotten. And don't think that whatever I have spoken is from my committee's report. I very clearly stated I am not talking about Chennai only. It is a global problem, a universal problem. This is a problem in all cities. You go to any city, you will find this. So that's why I have not given Chennai example. This happened in Pallikaranai, that happened in North Chennai, that happened in Mambalam. No, I didn't say that. Second is, this implementation is with government. So we have given our recommendations, and government has kept it as a classified document. So I will not be entitled to speak about my specific recommendations here. I'm really sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So this rainwater harvesting.
So one second.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
I'm Sumant Raman. Just one point, and first of all, thank you for an excellent presentation. The point I wanted to make was almost 95% of what you said boils down to bad governance. I mean, in some form or the other, whether it is corruption, whether it is poor planning, whether it is poor implementation, whether it is poor enforcement. So, I mean, what kind of solution can come from? I mean, because we can put down on paper the things that need to be done, but at least 50-60% of this probably was known even 15 years ago or 20 years ago, and nothing has significant has been done. Year after year we have the same problem, and while we understand that world over these events do happen, the fact that we can mitigate a lot of the extent of the damage that we face if these issues were sorted out. So from an enforcement perspective, do you feel that something has to change in the governance structure rather than us looking at, because most of this is stuff which I'm sure committees maybe 25-30 years ago have already suggested. So what would you think from an enforcement perspective needs to be done to make sure that these things that you highlighted today are actually implemented? Like, you submitted a report. Now, as you said, it's kept as a confidential document. Government has not put it in public domain. We don't know whether they will act on it, what they will act on. So purely from a, how do we get things to change, to put it in very simple terms?
See, when I spoke about those 4 priorities of Sendai framework, the second is about improving risk governance. The first is understanding risk. The second is improving risk governance. Of course, risk governance should be improved. If you want to improve risk governance, then there should be a strong political will. That is the most important thing. Again, this is a problem not particularly to Chennai, all the cities in India, it is there. Enforcement of regulations is a very weak area in this country. I will give you an example. During Corona time, all the state governments said that if you don't wear mask, you will be fined. The same condition was imposed in many Western countries, and people really protested. In USA, people protested. In Australia, people protested. In South Korea, people protested. In France, they protested to such an extent, police had to resort to firing. But in India, nobody protested. Nobody protested. People had enough confidence it will not be enforced. So here, the difference between our country and Western countries, coming out with a regulation is very difficult over there, but enforcing it is easy. Here, it is coming out with the regulation is easy, enforcing it is more difficult. So I do not think that you need, that's why I don't say that you need a new act or new thing and new regulation. But implementing the regulations is very, very important. That is number one. Second is understanding the risk. Do we really understand the risk? What sort of long-term perspective we have? How did we in this country convert water bodies? See, the first thing which will fall prey to anything we do is water bodies. We are thinking that water bodies are for entertainment. We have forgotten the hydrological functions of water bodies. So we have to respect the hydrological function of water bodies, the environmental function which a water body is playing. And then floodplains, in my opinion, it doesn't belong to anybody, it belongs to the river. கரை புரண்டு வெள்ளம் ஓடியதுன்னு நம்ம படிக்கிறோம். அப்போ அந்த கரை புரண்டு ஓடுவதற்கான வாய்ப்பு இருக்கிறதான்னா இல்லை. ஏன்னா நம்ம 50 வருஷமாக வெள்ளம் வரல, ஸோ வராது. இந்த தியரி 50 வருஷமாக ஒன்றுமே நேரம் இல்லை, பசங்க கிரிக்கெட் தான் விளையாடுறாங்க, இங்கே ஹவுசிங் காலனி கட்டிடலாம். ஸோ தட் ஷார்ட் டேர்ம் வியூ, ஆல் ஆஃப் அஸ் ஹேவ் ஹேட் திஸ் ஷார்ட் டேர்ம் வியூ ஆல் ஓவர் த globe. That is one of the reasons. Third reason I said is that we need to really understand the risk. At least in expanding our cities, we should go for risk-informed planning and improving the governance. I mentioned about departments working in silos. So they should work together actually. Let us take one city. This is not Chennai. I visited one city. 4 departments are interconnected in executing a drainage work. The municipality had money. They completed their part of it. And when highway is going through that, the highway department did not have money and they didn't increase the size of the culvert. So the only thing is flooding from downstream has been shifted into flooding in the upstream. So that sort of working in silos should not be there. Flood mitigation plan should be a comprehensive plan, and departments may implement it department-wise for their convenience, but the plan should be a unified plan. That will really help, I think.
Sir, a small question.
Yes.
You're talking about porosity on pavements because that's causing a lot of runoff. Now, even the rainwater drains which are created today, the bottom portion, actually we had suggestions as a community earlier that there should be some porosity at the bottom. Now, I don't see any rainwater which is being constructed having any porosity at the bottom. They're all concretized, not even brick. So this is something which cannot be changed because it's. I think it actually adds to the problem.
If you watch my presentation carefully, I spoke about bioswales. Bioswales is that only. You have plants in the drains which serves a dual function. One is it will help groundwater recharge and it will also do the work of filtering the pollutants.
Good evening. Good evening, sir. So hi, sir, here, sir.
Yeah.
So thank you for making this presentation, sharing your wisdom, sir. So actually, I happen to pass by a water body every day. That is, I see it's being neglected, and I see it will be soon. It won't be there anymore, and be something else. So, what, as an individual, as a volunteer, what can I do, sir? What would you advise, sir?
So I showed 5 slides about what a citizen should do. First, we should stop becoming part of the problem. Then I also told what we should do to become part of the solution. Isn't it?
I mean, this needs some kind of activism, I see. As I see the problem, it needs some sort of activism.
Yeah,
Where can I start?
You form a group of like-minded people and voice your concerns, meet the concerned responsibility, write about it, speak about it. There are 1,000 ways of telling you a problem.
So is there some body that I can say there is
see,
no law and
are
order?
you-
We go to the police. There's some when a water body is endangered, who can we take it up?
Water
with?
Resources Department.
Okay.
Hello, sir. I have a thing. Why don't they make the basic roads instead of tar something which is more permeable on a long term? That will provide more things for the environment. You need not necessarily plant trees everywhere. Remove the tar totally and make it more permeable. So there's breathing of the ground.
See, I am not technically competent to comment about this because the vehicle load and traffic, all this has to be taken into account. So an expert in roads and buildings should be able to tell you. I am not an expert in that area. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So I think, as I said earlier, we'll carry back a lot of education, because this has been a scholarly presentation. It is not a mere, anecdotal or, when I was there, I did this, I did that, but a deep study of the problem and solutions. Just to end on a light note, all of us in the field have handled floods. So one thing that we can say very surely, Chennai and Chennai people, every time they say we are very resilient. We've been resilient for quite some time. We have known how to live with the floods. 40 years back when we were in the field, you go down, every year there used to be a flood in certain areas and they would say, on the pump here, open the school, we'll all move there, give us food potlams. So we've been living with the floods for a long time, and now we have adapted. Whenever it's going to rain, we go and park our cars on the Velachery flyover. So we have learned how to live with the floods, and the other things will catch up in due course. Probably, whatever Mr. Thiruppugazh has told, he's been advising, and I can take your this thing. After retirement, we can only advise. we don't take any responsibility for someone listening to our advice. Thank you very much for that. It was a wonderful presentation. We have a very busy October and November. Tomorrow we have a program. We have the DGP and Police Commissioner of Mumbai talking to us on his latest book, The Brahmastra Unleashed. This is at the MCC school in Chetpet, and this is from 4:30 to 6 p.m. So those of you who are interested can come there tomorrow. On October 18th, we have a film on the altar, at the altar of India's freedom, a documentary screening on the Indian National Army. I'm told it's a very, very unique project, and many of you will benefit from that. On October 23rd, we have Strategy, Growth and Competition in the Age of AI. This is jointly with the MMA and the TIE. Then we have on November 1st, In Those Days There Was No Coffee, a discussion on a book by R. Venkatachalapati. That would be at Tagore here. On the 8th of November, we have a biographical montage of Right Honorable V.S. Srinivasa Sastry, again at the Tagore Hall here. 15th of November, we have Testimony by Fire, a book written by Atulya Mishra. And as this is a 4th edition of the Chennai Lit Fest. This will be held at the Music Academy Mini Hall on the November 29th. So this is a program, it's a packed program. I'm sure many of you we would be intimating you in due course all these programs, but do come and encourage us in our activities. Thank you very much for being here, and hope to see you in all our weekly programs. Thank you.